Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you've had a lovely week so far, and if you're watching this on Sunday, happy Sunday. I hope you're having a lovely weekend. Just wanted to start off by saying a massive thank you to everyone, because recently I actually hit 50,000 subscribers, which is incredible. It's my first year on YouTube, and I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone here, because without you guys, I could not be doing this. So thank you so much. By the end of the year, I've always said I would love to get to 100,000 subscribers. So I think we've got 49,000 more to go. I appreciate that's quite a big gap, but we're going to aim for it and see how we get on. So if you haven't already, then just double check you are subscribed, because it's quite easy to not do. It just means that you're going to be notified of all of my new videos. Normally at the moment, I'm posting once a week or every Sunday. More to come on that in the future. But enough of the sob story and begging. I thought today we'd spend some time on the renovation and actually going back and talking about something that I get asked about pretty much every single day. I'd say ever since I started sharing stuff online, every single day without fail, I am asked all about the transformation of the front of the house. So I thought today I'd go through our process, try and break down as much as I can, and sort of tell you a bit more of the story about why we decided to transform the front of our house, and hopefully it will help you. I know a lot of people watching this are renovating themselves. A lot of you have renovated houses before, so if you have, then just ignore me, because I'm sure you know much more than me, but I'm just sharing our experience and what we did to get the front of our house to what it looks like now. So yeah, hopefully this is insightful and you enjoy it. And I think I'm probably, depending on how this performs, I'm probably going to start a series and release it every now and again, not every single week, but do a series on each segment of the house and take you through the sort of before to the afters, the processes involved in it, the design aspects, and just hopefully you guys find it helpful. So yeah, enough of me talking, let's get on with today's video. As you can see from the front of our house, it just looks a bit unloved, and if you're walking past it, you just completely ignore it, mainly because it just has no interest to it. The windows are aluminium windows, they're not original. Originally this house would have had sash windows. The brickwork has been covered in this really ugly render. It's not actually pebbledash, but I think for the purposes of today's video, I'm just going to refer to it as pebbledash. It was actually a substance called tyrolene, but I will touch on that in a second. And then the rest of the house, there was no front garden, everything was tiled, and something that doesn't come across is both in the front and the back garden, our ground level was completely messed up. As you looked at our house face on and in the back garden, I'd say there was probably 30 centimeters, if not more, just worth of rubble and concrete, and then concrete slabs on top of it. So basically our ground level was completely altered. So as you looked at the house, it was just really ugly. There was no greenery, there were no plants, and our front wall was just horrific. Both Chad and I wanted to take it quite slowly with the front of our house, because it's the first thing people see when they come to your home. It's the first thing that people are going to judge it on when you're selling the house, when you're buying a house. So we really wanted to nail it and just sort of make it the best that it could be. So I'd say this is quite particular to our sort of situation, but Chad and I used to go for dog walks in the mornings and the afternoons around our local area, and we're very lucky that a lot of houses in our area are being renovated and restored. So what we used to do is walk across all of our streets and note down things that people were doing in their front of the houses that we really liked the look of, and also things that we didn't like. And I'd say we pretty much summarized everything into three things. So the first thing was people were restoring their windows and their door. The second thing was they were doing their brickwork. And then I'd say the third thing that sort of ties in was the front garden and a front wall. So we knew that all three things we pretty much wanted to do with our home. We noticed that around here, they were missing something. They either didn't have a nice front wall and they had nice windows, or they had a nice front door, not nice windows, and a nice front wall. There were just houses that hadn't fully ticked everything off. So we decided we wanted to do every single thing properly. So the first thing that we decided to do was to actually restore our bricks. Now, if you're in a similar boat to us and you have a similar house, then I would recommend doing this first. It's a very messy job, it's very invasive, and it's something you should probably get ticked off as soon as possible before internal work start, because when your bricks get touched, it just causes so much mess. So a lot of houses in the UK, and especially in London, have something on them called pebbledash. It's an external wall cladding that people added on, I think, in the 50s. It goes back longer than that, but in the 50s, I think there was this resurgence of sort of covering low quality brickwork with an exterior render. Pebble dash is the most common thing that you'll see on houses. It's tiny, tiny stones mixed with cement, and it's just sort of chucked on your house. It's meant to protect your bricks. We actually have something called Tyrolean, which is a mixture of like paint and render. It's actually worse and harder to get off than pebble dash. So if you have pebble dash, you should be fine. But a lot of people did it, as I just mentioned, to cover their low quality brickwork. There are so many pebble dashed houses around here, and I don't really understand why, because all of the brickwork is quite nice. It's all London stock yellow brick, which is like a traditional London colour. So we decided we want to get this taken off and our bricks to be sort of resurfaced and restored. I won't take credit for this because it's all down to Chad. Chad organised all of our tradesmen, all of our builders. The only thing I supplied was my dad, who was the electrician. So Chad is more qualified to talk on this, but what Chad actually did for the front of our house is he went to one of our neighbours. I actually think he went to quite a few of our neighbours, knocked on their door and asked them who did their brickwork. And he actually got a company who did the brickwork on our neighbour's house, and we actually used them. They came in at the cheapest. During that time, we actually did get quite a few quotes from tradesmen on My Builder and Checker Trade, which are two sites in the UK which you can use for trades. They were starting off in the couple of thousands, and some of the quotes went up to tens of thousands. So I believe the quote we got for the front of our house was around £3,500. For that sort of price, for the amount of work and the amount of impact it would have on the front of our house, we just thought it was a no-brainer. So we booked the guys in, and within a few days' time, they actually started working on the front of our house. If you're looking to do this, then I would highly recommend it, because lots of people know that when you have an exterior wall cladding, you do get quite a few issues. What happens is the external wall cladding cracks, water seeps in, and then the water gets trapped between the bricks and the external render with nowhere to escape. So what it does is it damages your bricks and it penetrates into your house, which causes damp. But essentially what our builders did was they took a drill bit and chipped off every single piece of render from the front of our house. Now, was this the best way to remove the render from the front of our house? I'm not too sure. When the render was being drilled off the front of our house and off our bricks, quite a bit of the brick underneath was damaged, because essentially we're just drilling the brick. Probably not the best thing to do to a brick, but what they did after they drilled into it is they just sanded it lightly to get a more level surface, and then they repointed it with lime. I'd say we were quite lucky that none of the bricks at the front of our house were severely damaged, and I don't think anything had to be replaced at the front of our house. But sometimes if the brick is really damaged, then they have to remove it and replace it, and that did actually happen on the back of our house. Our bricks do look lovely now, but I have heard other people using methods like sandblasting. There are lots of different things you can do. This is the way we did it, and in all honesty, I would probably do it again. Our bricks look really lovely, and it's the one thing that I get questioned on all the time. The whole process didn't take that long. It took, I think, a couple of weeks, so the scaffolding wasn't up on the outside of our house for that long. But as I mentioned, it is a very messy job. As you can imagine, there's just a lot of rubble, a lot of dust everywhere. So yeah, if you're looking to do this sort of thing, I would highly recommend doing it first, especially before you put in your windows and your doors and do any internal works. So when we had all of the render removed from the front of our house, the next thing we wanted to tackle were our windows and our front door. Now, I'd say we made a bit of an error with our windows we chose the first time. When we originally put windows in, after removing our really ugly single paned glass aluminium windows that were completely broken when we moved in, we actually chose to go for PVC sash windows. Now, they were really lovely windows, and in all honesty, the reason we chose them was because they were cheaper. If you've looked at the price of windows before, you'll know the struggle. I think our PVC sash windows came to around £12,000 to £13,000 for the whole of the house, which obviously is a lot of money, but it's very affordable to do every single window in your entire house. And at the same time, we got quotes for wooden timber sash windows, and they came to around £30,000. So the reason we went for PVC windows is because they were cheaper. I think at that time, we just wanted to put in the character of sash windows and just have what should have been there, not realizing that we should have just gone for wooden timber sash windows. Now, we didn't make the mistake with our front door. We actually had two plastic doors when we moved in, so we actually wanted to take out both of these doors. A question I get asked quite a lot is why we moved back the door from the original sort of state of it. And it's actually because the original door would have been inset, so you had a slight porch, which is where our current door is now. If you look at Victorian properties, quite often you'll have this sort of little tiny porch before you get into your main door. Lots of people, for some reason, decide to get rid of that and just have an external door right at the front, which I personally think looks quite cheap, and it doesn't look as nice as having an inset door. So one of my recommendations would be to do it how the Victorians would have done it, or the Edwardians would have done it, whatever time period your property's from. Just emulate and copy what they would have done. But we actually decided to go for a wooden timber door for our front door. We used a company called Beechall Joinery. I will leave their details below. We're actually really good friends with the guy who runs Beechall Joinery, and I will just mention, this is not an ad, it's not sponsored, but they are incredible. If you're looking to get a door, I will leave their details linked down below. Everything is made on site in London. We've been to their factory multiple times. We've seen our windows being made. We've met all of the team. They're just honestly what you want from a company when you're restoring a home. They take such pride in their products. Every single thing is done in their shop. It's just incredible. The quality, the craftsmanship is top notch. What we actually decided to do for the front door was choose quite a traditional 2-pane glass Victorian style door. We wanted brass ironmongery on it. We actually chose Banham locks, which is, I think, the only locks that Beechall do, which if you don't know, they're like the best of the best. I think themselves cost like £1,000. So honestly, the products you get from Beechall, incredible. But yeah, we decided to keep it quite traditional. We were debating on whether to do stained glass for the 2 panes of glass in our front door, but I actually decided against it because I think on these types of property, they only look nice if you have 4 panels of door. Now, I'll try and pop in a picture of what I'm talking about, but normally on Victorian properties, on larger Victorian properties, you have sort of like a bigger door with 2 panes of glass either side, and then you have an upper fan light, I think is what they're called, and all of them together when they're stained glass I think look absolutely beautiful. But I think on a property where you have 1 fan light and not that much space, I think it can look a bit too much and a bit too try hard. So what we decided to do, which is quite unlike us, was go quite modern with the reeded glass that we popped into the 2 panes of glass, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. For me, it's quite timeless. I think it just adds a real level of sophistication to the front door. You really have so many options, but I'd say if you're looking to keep the sort of traditional feel of a house, keep the design quite traditional. But I'd also say it's your home, so try and add as much personality into your home as possible. One thing that I love about houses is seeing different coloured front doors. I think if they're all in the same sort of style and you walk down a street and some front doors are bright pink, bright yellow, red, blue, green, I think it looks really, really lovely because you can see who lives inside the house. So I think experiment with colour, but keep the design quite traditional. And then if we fast forward time a few years later, I think it was only quite recent we had this done, but we actually decided to take out our PVC sash windows and replace them with Beechall timber sash windows. And it's something we do not regret at all. Obviously, it's quite wasteful to do that, and we should have done this originally, but I'd say this is our first home, our first renovation, and what we've learnt from this renovation is that you can't cut corners. If you want the really beautiful, characterful period properties, you have to put in the work and you have to put in the money in the things that are important. And I'd say the things that are important for the front of your house are your windows and your front door. I don't think you can really go cheap on them. So yeah, our windows and our front door are from Beechall. And then also our back door in our kitchen is also from Beechall. We also recently decided to change that for a couple of reasons. A few years down the line through our renovation, it just got completely beaten up. We actually put in our back door before we did our garden renovation. So another tip, if your garden involves going through your house, try and do your garden first during a renovation, just so you don't have builders and dirt and all this sort of stuff going through your house that you've just renovated. But yeah, we originally had a back door from Beechall in our kitchen. It just got beaten up through the years. And then to top it off, our dog Dougal, who we recently lost at the start of the year, was really ill towards the start of the year. And a few times he tried to get out into the back garden to relieve himself, and he just completely damaged the door. So we decided to get that replaced with a really beautiful door that we have now. We designed it with Beechall again. We went for sort of like a country French-ish type of door now, and we absolutely love it. So yeah, another area where we sort of wasted money. But life happens, and we now have a back door that we absolutely love and that looks really beautiful in our new kitchen. So I'm just getting cramp in my leg now from sitting down for too long. But I'd say the last thing we wanted to do for the front of our house was to make this really beautiful front garden. Now our front garden, I'd say, involves a few things. It involved replacing our front wall. It involved creating a path and tiling in like a traditional mosaic tile, and also then creating a front garden. I'll break this down as easily as I can, but I'd say the first thing that we did was actually tear down our old wall, which was made from really ugly, cheap yellow and red brick. and we actually replaced it with really beautiful London stock bricks. We got them reclaimed through our builder that also did our pebbledash removal. He also constructed our wall. I think for the front wall, it came to around, I want to say £1,000. I will fact check that and pop the actual amount on the screen now if it is different. But yeah, we decided to create this front wall. We were debating on what to finish the wall off with. And again, I think this was actually Chad's idea. So I will continue to give Chad credit where credit is due. Obviously, I've made his interior design skills a lot better, but he does have some good ideas sometimes. So what Chad actually decided was he wanted to have pier caps going across the wall, but we actually found this company called, I want to say Keystone Casting. Again, I will leave their details linked down below. We debated on whether to add iron railings instead of the pier caps or on top of them, and we just decided that that was a bit too much. So we actually just left it as it is, and we had this really beautiful sort of new structure that surrounded the front of our house and really sort of frames the front of our home. When we were designing our front wall, we wanted it at a height that plants could spill over, and you could actually see our bay window and our sort of front door from different angles. So I'd say if you were building a front wall on a terraced house like this, do take into account that you're not trying to build a 6-foot wall. It does have to be decorative to some degree, and you can do that in many ways. I really do like the look of wrought iron or just iron railings across. I think that can look really beautiful. But we went in the direction that sort of favoured having plants in the front garden. After our front wall was built, I think we actually left it maybe a year or a year and a half, 2 years, until we decided to tackle the front path and our front door area. For this, we knew we wanted a traditional type of mosaic tile. Now, you can get different types of mosaics. We wanted to keep ours quite traditional. In my opinion, some mosaics can look really, really cheap, and I really don't like some mosaics, this is just my opinion, where you can sort of see the grout lines, and you'd commonly get these from places like Tops Tiles or other big sort of tile companies that don't specialize in a traditional style mosaic tile. The one we prefer is more continuous. It looks a bit more traditional, and in my opinion, it's just a bit softer on the eye. So we decided to go with that type of mosaic. The other thing that we needed to tackle when we were looking at the front path area of our house was our outside porch. Now, as you look at the outside porch before you come in, there's a step, and what used to be there were the Victorian encaustic tiles, I want to call them. They're the really bold yellow, brown, blue patterned style of tiles. They're something that I really dislike, and I know that's quite shocking, maybe to some. I'm a stickler for keeping things traditional and as they should be, but I think for my personal taste, I'm not the biggest fan of them. I think if you're looking to add your own flooring in your home, I do think you should protect them and then sort of put your flooring on top of them in case people want to restore them to how they traditionally were. I am a firm believer of that. But unluckily for us, that was the only bit of traditional feature our house had, and they were really severely damaged. So we actually decided to tile over them with our new mosaic tiles. We decided to add in a bullnose step in like a creamy, stony colour to match our external brick and the pier caps and the front wall. Everything's very yellow, very sort of warm. But we actually decided to add this in, I think it's York stone, I'm not too sure, I will double check that. But we wanted that as the step to come onto the front porch, and then in our front porch area, there's just a segment of it that is tiled in a Victorian mosaic pattern. And then as you come off that onto the front path, it's just all tiled really beautifully. Mosaic tiling is extortionate. I think for the, I think someone wants to come up and say hello. Mosaic tiling is extortionate. I think for the cost of labour, materials, everything, mosaic tiling, the bullnose step, came to around £2,200. I'll leave the price on the screen, but this was a few years ago now, so apologies for my memory. But yeah, it is very expensive work, especially when they're laying each tile individually, but definitely worth doing. And again, it is the front of your home, so it's definitely worth investing, and it will be the first thing people see if you're looking to sell your home. So yeah, definitely worth doing. Are you gonna be annoying or are you gonna be a good boy? You gonna be a good boy? Good boy, right, get out. I'd say the last thing you need to consider for the front of your home, if you're living in London especially, or in a city, is a front garden itself. You really notice this when you walk down streets in London compared to places like where I'm from in the Cotswolds. Everyone takes such pride in their front gardens, and just greenery really softens man-made materials. And I think the front of your home could not look more appealing than just with a bit of greenery, whether it's in pots, whether it's planted in the ground. Something to soften all of the brickwork really does the front of your house so much good. We actually decided to pop in some hydrangeas Now, I recently changed these, but the hydrangeas we planted originally were Annabelle hydrangeas. They're actually the incredible versions, so they were the strongest stemmed versions. They didn't love where they were in the ground, so we recently replaced them for something a little bit more heat tolerant, and we actually replaced them with limelight hydrangeas. I'll pop in an image now of what they look like. It's a shame because the other ones were around 3 years old now, so they were quite mature. These ones will get to a bigger size, hopefully. And hopefully they'll just thrive a bit better in there. But I think hydrangeas especially add a really lovely sort of sculptural structure to the front of your garden. You can also leave the faded flower heads on the plant until next spring. It gives you some winter interest. Obviously it's not evergreen, and there probably are alternatives that you could get that look a bit nicer. The other thing that we did was planted lavender at the front of the garden. We've popped it in a position where as you walk past it, you sort of get a smell when you brush past it. I think it's really lovely as like a sensory experience when you can smell lavender walking past through a path. Obviously there's not that much room at the front of our house, but we've popped it at the front of the path and then also as you get to the door. So there's 2 places you can sort of really experience that lavender smell. We've also then planted some climbing roses on the wall that we share with our neighbour, just to sort of hide that structure. It's not the nicest shared wall that we have, so we thought why not make it quite pretty. The roses we've chosen pretty much are evergreen, so they have greenery and foliage on them all year round, and they flower continuously through the year. They're the Claire Austin, David Austin climbing roses, so they are white. They also tie into obviously the white hydrangeas that we have. And then lastly, the most important thing, in my opinion, is the wisteria. Now, I always get so many questions and comments about the wisteria. We have popped it in the ground. No, wisteria will not take over your house if you take care of it properly. In fact, ours hasn't really grown that significantly in the 1.5 to 2 years that we've had it. There is an argument that wisteria can add value to your house. I think it can technically add 5% value to your home. How true that is, I do not know. But personally, if I were looking at 2 houses, one of them had wisteria and the other didn't, and they were identical, I would prefer the one with the wisteria. I think wisteria is such a good option for the front of your home. I think nothing looks better than wisteria climbing over a bay window, over the arch of a door, just gracefully climbing up the whole frontage of the house. I think it just looks so beautiful. And obviously in the sort of late spring, early summer, you do get the really beautiful flowers. You can choose purple flowers, white flowers. So again, one of my other recommendations is to look to add a climbing plant at the front of your house, preferably, in my opinion, a wisteria, but I know other people have star jasmine, they have different types of jasmines, they have climbing roses. Ultimately, you're looking to add interest to the front of your home. Plants, greenery, foliage, it all just does a really great job of softening the front of your house and making it look more romantic and charming. I just think people often don't realize how easy it is to add some greenery to the front of your home. And in my opinion, it just softens the front of your house. So definitely look to add some greenery to the front of your home. I think I have covered all of the details for the front of our house. The only other thing to mention is our bay window. Now this might be quite niche to us, obviously because we live in a terraced Victorian property. The bay window that we had, we did have to restore. All of the bay windows in our area are pretty much the same. They have sort of decorative plinths as the main base of the bay window. We obviously don't have that. Whoever restored the bay window before we bought the house had that taken out for whatever reason. Maybe it was damaged, maybe they just didn't like it, I'm not too sure, we don't have the facts. And they actually replaced it with brick, which isn't the ugliest thing, but what we decided to do was render the outside of the brick with a render called Toupret, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a type of exterior render, but we actually used our internal plasterer who did an amazing job of sort of making it look like it always was there. We wanted him to keep as much of these sort of decorative parts as possible, and I think he did an amazing job on that. When we discovered it was just brick, I think we were a bit annoyed because we really wanted to sort of strip back and uncover something that we thought would be there. And we didn't want our house to stick out like a sore thumb and be the only house on our street that didn't have the original bay window. But in hindsight, we love how it's turned out, and we actually prefer it to the other bay windows on our street. I think ours looks quite chunky, quite meaty, and I think it suits the sort of front of our house. Whereas the other bay windows on our street do look a bit thin, and I just think ours looks a bit nicer. So yeah, don't be disheartened if you don't have any original features in your home. You can make the best of what you have. I think I have now covered every single thing we've done to the front of our house. Hopefully you found this insightful. Hopefully I haven't talked too much and bored you and you've got to this point in the video. I know it's quite helpful if you're renovating yourself to sort of see how someone else has done it, if you've got similar projects to tackle in terms of costs, in terms of timeline. So if you've enjoyed this video, please do give this video a like, leave a comment down below, ask me a question on anything you've seen. I will try and get back to you down below. Again, if you haven't yet, please do hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 100,000 this year. Fingers crossed we'll get there. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next week for another video.